Okay, our next section, 5.4, is solving rational equations. This is very similar to solving polynomial equations, except now that you'll have rational, meaning you have fractions. Let's start here. X minus 2 over x minus 3 is equal to 0. Now we have to remember in rational equations there are, because you're dealing with rational functions, you have to remember that there are certain restrictions that exist on the function itself. For example, for x minus 2 over x minus 3, we know that x will never equal 3 because that's an asymptote. So at the start of your questions, before you start these equations, before you start the questions with solving equations or rational equations, you have to start by listing your restrictions. The first restriction on here, x minus 2 over x minus 3, is that x cannot equal 3. This is a very important step, that you should do this at the beginning. List your restrictions. The rest of it is very straightforward, though exactly how you would normally solve a fraction. Let's take x minus 3 to the other side, because we want to make and multiply it. So x minus 2 here, and then 0 times x minus 3. 0 times x minus 3 will cancel it out, and will just be x minus 2 equals 0. Take 2 to the other side, and x is equal to 2. Reminder again from chapter 4, that because we're solving equations, we will have singular answers, or 2 or 3, or finite amount of answers. It will not be a range of answers. Let's try number 2 now. X plus 3 over x minus 4, and x minus 1 over x plus 2. The first thing we want to do is to identify our restrictions. X cannot equal 4, and x cannot equal to negative 2. That's straightforward. That's just looking at the asymptotes. Next, we want to go ahead and solve the way we would for any fraction. We're going to cross multiply. The x plus 2 gets multiplied with the numerator here, and the x minus 4 comes to the other side and gets multiplied on the right side. So x plus 3 and x minus 1 were always there in the numerators. The x minus 4 was taken to the other side, and now it's being multiplied on the other side. And the x plus 2, which is being divided, on the other side it will become multiplied as well. So now what we're going to do is expand, collect our like terms, and then solve the quadratic that we potentially may have. So x times x, we have x squared plus 5x plus 6. If we were to expand this using FOIL or the distributive property, same thing here, it would be x squared minus 5x plus 4. The next step is to combine all your like terms and put them all onto one side equal to 0 in factored form. So let's take everything to one side, x squared plus 5x plus 6, and then bring all of these over, minus x squared plus 5x minus 4 is equal to 0. X squared minus x squared is gone. 5x plus 5x will be 10x, and then 6 minus 4 will be 2, and that's equal to 0. Take the 2 to the other side. 10x is equal to negative 2, and x will be equal to negative 1 over 5. So the solution to that rational function would just be x is equal to negative 1 over 5 with the restrictions that x cannot equal 4 and x cannot equal negative 2, which did not matter in this specific equation. Solving these rational equations will actually be very straightforward once you've practiced a few. Just remember your process. Identify your restrictions. Obviously, that means you need to be able to factor the denominators. So put the denominators into simplest form and then factor. You need to do this before, and identify your restrictions. You need to do this before you start crossing out or simplifying your fractions. This needs to be the first step that we do, except for maybe if you were to factor the numerator or the denominator on its own. The real difficulty in this section will be creating equations from the word problems. So let's take a look at one or two from the examples. Okay, So this is example 4 from your textbook in 5.4. Rima bought a case of concert t-shirts for $450. She kept 2 t-shirts for herself and sold the rest for $560, making a profit of $10 on each shirt. How many t-shirts were in the case? In a lot of these questions, there's a lot going on, and you need to be able to compile it all into simplified thought. So we have a box of t-shirts that were purchased for $450. 2 of them were put aside, and whatever was left in the box was sold off for $560. In total, she made $10 profit for each shirt. So meaning if she sold 10 shirts, she made $10 on each of those shirts, meaning she sold them for a total of $100. The question now is asking how many t-shirts were in the case. When you're setting up an equation for your problem, a lot of times it helps really to identify your variables. We did this, you guys have done this in previous years. Whenever you're solving a system of equations, you start by identifying the variables or defining your variables. In this case, I'm going to say how many t-shirts, that's going to be X. How many t-shirts do I want to, what the variable that I want to solve for is going to be X. But what's the equation going to be made up of? Some t-shirts were bought for $450. She kept 2 of them for herself, and then she sold them for $560, and she made a profit of $10 on each shirt. When you're trying to come up with an equation, you want to find some quantity that relates everything that's going on. In this case, I could break it down into 2 parts. The first part is when she bought it, and the second part is when she sold it. The one thing that connects the buying and the selling is the word here is profit, and there's a profit of $10. So what I can say is, how do you find profit per shirt? It would be the cost that each shirt was bought for and the cost that each shirt was sold for, and their relationship is a profit of $10. So if there's a profit, that means the revenue, the amount that you sell for, is higher than the amount that you bought it for. So the amount that you sell for, so let's call it selling price per shirt, right? Minus the purchase price per shirt, right? The amount that you sold each shirt for minus the amount that you bought each shirt for would equal to $10. That's profit. The amount you sell for minus the amount that you purchase for. And the reason I'm going to do per shirt and per shirt is because the profit is $10 on each shirt. So it's $10 per shirt. Okay. I know the selling price. The total selling price is $560. So I know the $560 is a part of this. The purchase price for all of the shirts is $450. Now this is where you have to be able to take the total amount and identify how to convert it to be a per unit value. This is a per shirt value. If there's $450 being spent on a box of shirts, if I was to take that amount and divide it by the amount of shirts, the number of shirts that I bought, I would find out how much each shirt cost. In the beginning, we identified X as representing how many t-shirts were in the case. So this would be 450 divided by X. $450 for X amount of shirts. If I divide it, I will find out the purchase price for each shirt. The selling price, okay, there were $560. That's what it was sold for. But it's no longer X amount of shirts, right? Because 2 shirts were kept for herself, so it's actually X minus 2 shirts. So 560 divided by X minus 2 minus 450 divided by X will equal to $10. And that's the equation that we need to solve for. All right, and that's when we get into, you have a common denominator, X minus 2. The common denominator would be X times X minus 2. So when we have X multiplied by 560X, so it would be 560X minus 450 times X minus 2. That would be 450X plus 900, right? 450 times X, 450 times 2, and that's equal to $10. Obviously, I'm running out of space, so I'm going to do one more line, and then I'll continue here. So 560 minus 450 is going to be 110x. So I have 110x plus 900 over x squared minus 2x is equal to 10. Now I can go through and start solving. I know that x squared minus 2x, I can take it to the other side and multiply by 10. And make a box here. So I have 110x plus 900 is equal to 10 multiplied by x squared minus 2x. Right? Because I took x squared minus 2x to the other side and multiplied. Now I can simplify a lot of this. So that's 10x squared minus 10 times 2 is 20x. Put everything onto the same side, set it equal to 0, and put it into factored form if possible, and that's how we would solve a quadratic. So let's take 110x to the other side and take 900 to the other side. 0 is equal to 10x squared. Then I have 110x being subtracted, so it'd be minus 130x. Take 900 to the other side, minus 900. Now if we go through and we divide everything by 10 right away, I know the 10 can be taken out, 13 and 90. So my equation would be 10 multiplied by x squared minus 13x minus 90. So now we need to come up with two numbers that multiply to be negative 90 and add up to be negative 13. For the interest of time, I'm going to cheat and look off of here, and those two numbers would be negative 18 and positive 5. So we have 0 is equal to 10 times x minus 18, x plus 5. And finally, so your solutions would be x is equal to 18 and x is equal to negative 5. Now obviously in the beginning it's impossible to have negative 5 shirts, so that answer is inadmissible. It's one that you can ignore. You cannot include it as part of your answers. So in the beginning there had to be 18 shirts.